But the deal is, if I ever get to a situation and I have all this stuff on and I'm gonna spend a lot of time fishing in this room. So this area's got a lot of fish in it and I'm gonna spend a lot of time here. That's when I start turning all that stuff off. But up till that point, as long as I'm practicing, or it could be I'm running and gunning and running a pattern, I still leave all that stuff on. It's important to have it. And I'm always constantly, and I've learned this over time, I'm always watching everything. You know, I'm always looking for some subtleties, because here's the deal. It doesn't matter if I'm fishing in 2 feet of water or 60 feet of water. More times than not, there's something about the bottom that's different that makes that place, makes the fish want to be there. There's more times than not. And again, now we're not talking about this other deal. We're talking about, we're traditionally bass fishing, and I'm fishing. It doesn't matter if I'm running down a bank, it's got laydowns on it, or I'm fishing rocks. I'm always looking at the bottom. I always have my 2D on. These are things that'll never go away, even though we have this new technology. These things will never, I'll never stop looking at my 2D sonar. It's the best, probably, if you said you can only have one thing, if you can only have one thing, I'm sure right now 99% of the fishermen out there would pick the front-facing sonar, either the ActiveTarget, the LiveScope, whatever. But I would not. I would choose the 2D, because I always want to know what the bottom looks like. Because the bottom is what that fish is. Again, when these are the fish that I want to fish for, and these are the fish that I grew up fishing for, they are relating to the bottom because they're using that as a highway. So there's somehow they ended up there. Whether they ran a point up to get up there, or there's a little trough that they're following, a ditch, something that makes the current move that way, there's something to do with the bottom. So even when I'm fishing, basically when I know that the majority, I found my fish, and I found a lot of fish with my eyes. Just because I can run down a lake, I fish long enough and look at a stretch and go, if they live in this lake, they live right there. You know, but that's come over time. But even to that point, once I get there, once I've used my eyes in the season, you know, there's a reason that fish should be in this pocket, flat pockets, flat bushes. But there's a reason for that area. I know time of the year, soon as I get there, then I start using my equipment. Because our deal is, and I don't do a lot of pre-fishing. I did go to Grand here the other day and I rode around, and it's funny, I really just used my eyes. I rode the whole lake and I used my eyes. I looked at the depth finder to see where the shad were or whatever, but I didn't do any graphing when I was there. I rode the whole lake so I could visually see it with my eyes. And the reason for that is when we go back, and I never made a cast or anything, but when we go back, depending on what the weather is, I'll have some idea of the type of cover I think they should be on. You know, if it's cold or is it warm, are they trying to spawn? Did the lake come up? I looked at bushes that were on the bank that were dry, you know, all that stuff. But so that's kind of what this is about, is that I always start with this. Now I do study a map because we're fixing to go to Toledo, and I have done a little bit of map study, but I didn't go there and pre-fish. And the reason is, for me, this is all a game, in that it excites me to go to a lake and not know anything about it and have to break it down in 2.5 days. Well, the only way I cannot do that if I just spend all my time behind the wheel looking at my units. So I'll spend the majority of my time, if I'm gonna make a quick hot lap around the lake with my eyes, and I'm looking for something that looks good and something that should suit that time of the year. But with that being said, is when I light the boat down and drop the trolling motor, that's when I start using all my equipment. Like, that's when I start, like, you know, you got to catch one. You catch one off of something good, and then I start to analyze what did that fish come off of? What was the reason he was there? Then I can use all my equipment. Then I'm looking at the bottom on 2D. I got side, when I idle into one of these places, I got my side running on my, you know, I've got side scan on the back, 2D on the back and side scan, and then of course my mapping, GPS mapping. On the front, I got 2D and I got my ActiveTarget, so I can look all around at everything. But when I catch that first one, again, and these are, well, I'm fishing for fish that you can't, they're probably too shallow to get over and grab. That's what we're talking about. And they're probably either locked to the bottom or relating to cover in a way, and I'm moving at a high rate of speed that chances are I will not be able to see them on my ActiveTarget. But what I will be able to see with all that stuff is why they're there. Is it rock bottom? I mean, even sometimes I've used my power poles to find fish, because when I got bit or something and I hit my deal and they went down and I heard it drag. It was a hard bottom. So just those are the things that I absorb, you know, I've been very fortunate, but I absorb information really quick. And it typically, with me, a lot of the reservoirs that we go to are pattern places anyway. And I've made a career of pattern fishing, not necessarily never look for spots, but a lot of times I found spots when you're pattern fishing. But pattern fishing is consistent and it works any lake you go to. And bass are a creature of habit. So when I find one on one of these places and I analyze everything, why that fish was there, was the depth, how close was deep water to it. But again, I have to use all my technology to do that. And then the deal is, typically after we've absorbed that information, I've looked around what the bottom looks like, the water temperature, why that fish got there, then I can sit back on the console and scroll in on my GPS, because that's the other thing. Our mapping is so good, I don't buy paper maps anymore. Our mapping is so good on our units that I can sit back and go, well, there ought to be one there, 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 and there. And what happens when you start doing that, that's when you find a spot. Like pattern fishing got you going in the right direction, and then while you're pattern fishing, then all of a sudden you found a megawatt of fish by doing that. Because when you're pattern fishing, you're fishing current conditions, and you're fishing currently what the fish are doing right now. And so there will always be one place that's better, you know, than the rest. So
I just want to make sure what you're saying is what I'm picking up. So you're going out there, finding key points in this lake, and then going to deeper depth and going out with the sonar, looking at the structure that you think these fish are at, and then you're gonna.
Well, it don't necessarily have to be deep. It just has to be wherever they're at.
You're looking at the key points. You're going there and going deeper into that, like from the sonar, and then you're looking at the structure or whatever.
Yeah, but typically I'm gonna catch the first one off of something that I think looks good, you know? And that kind of even goes back to, you know, time on the water. Because I've always said, I heard somebody say, I don't even remember if I saw this on Instagram or something here recently, somebody was talking about that time on the water wasn't that important. And I can't remember, it could have even been at a clip that y'all played, but somebody said that, and I was like, that may work for some people, but for me, it's been my entire career that got me to this point, because I learn something every day. I think that's the coolest thing about bass fishing, that, God, I learned a ton last year. I learned a ton from Brock and Tyler. Like it's crazy. It's a never-ending deal. You know, you would think, so I would think at a young age that, let's look at Mark Davis. I'd be like, well, Mark Davis knows everything there is to know about a bass. But I was like, but now I'm like, no, he only knew what he knew up to that point, because every day you go out there, you learn something new. I think that's the cool thing about fishing. That's what makes it exciting, you know, and I think that's the cool thing about all this new equipment.